Do our children leave their modern Orthodox high schools with a desire and a passion to learn? When I ask this question to my colleagues, I get excuse after excuse. What do you want? They're just kids. Do you really expect a bunch of millennials to appreciate a 2,000-year-old Jewish text? Wait till they get to yeshiva, the Rebbeim in Israel. They'll inspire them. But as a first-year teacher full of passion and ideals, I have to wonder, is it possible to inspire every single modern Orthodox high school student to keep growing in their learning after high school? If we change something in our schools, could we double the number of students that go on to yeshivot? Could we, as mere high school teachers, set every student that leaves our schools on a lifelong path of Torah growth? Towards this end, I want to draw your attention to the Gemara in Avodah Zarah 19b that presents a simple, if wholly ignored, principle in curriculum development. Ein Adam Lomed Ela Mimkom Shelibo Chafetz. A person should only learn those Torah topics that they have a desire to learn. Rashi says this means the Rebbe should only teach the Masechta that the Talmud asks him to teach. What happens when we ignore this advice? When we demand that students suffer through what we find compelling? When we divorce the learning in our classrooms from our students' innate curiosity? I want to propose a dramatic change to the typical high school Torah Sheba'al Peh classroom. We need to, 1, build inquiry-based learning into our Gemara curriculum. 2, teach our students how to access the sources they need to construct answers to their questions. And 3, allow them to share what they have learned with others in compelling ways. This will turn our classrooms into active and excited communities of learners. If teaching Gemara skills is important in a Torah Sheba'al Peh classroom, more so is modeling how to seek answers to the questions that lie at the crux of what it means to be a modern Orthodox Jew. To illustrate, I was shocked recently when I was teaching the Gemara in Kiddushin that idealizes getting married when you're 13 years old to my class of advanced 10th graders. I literally had to shout to get the students to hear the obvious question. What does this mean for my life when conventional psychological wisdom tells me this is a terrible idea? I ended up devoting an entire period to teach them contemporary modern Orthodox views on sexuality. What became apparent from this episode was that many of my students are on the level of she'eno yodea lishol. They don't know how to ask. And we need to show them hafochba ve'hafochba dekulaba, that the Torah touches on every aspect of human life if you know how to access it. What if we pointed out such troubling questions to our students as we gave Shir on Gemara? What if we fielded personal responses to the Gemara from our students and elevated them to a place of importance in our Torah Sheba'al Peh curriculum, instead of trying to answer challenges posed by students in a cursory way, or shrugging them off with a nod and a smile? For instance, we could devote one day at the end of the week to implement an inquiry-based learning model, whereby students research answers to questions that they ask and that are not in the scope of the regular teacher-driven curriculum. Of course, inquiry-based learning in our classrooms will require a lot of teacher support and appropriate scaffolding. Instructors will have to prepare sources for students based on the questions that they ask, that they chose to investigate earlier in the week. And this may require crafting worksheets on a regular basis so that groups of students can prepare different materials simultaneously. Furthermore, in order to really empower our students before they leave our schools, we need to teach them research skills, in addition to encouraging them to seek answers to their own questions that arise in school. This means that we need to introduce them to a broad range of tools, including electronic tools such as the Bar Ilan Archive, YU Torah, and even Wikipedia, and show them how to use these tools effectively and responsibly. We also need to teach them how to use the indices and footnotes that scholars have meticulously crafted as research guides, both to contemporary English books as well as the classical sources such as the Talmud Bavli and Shulchan Aruch. This will allow us to loosen the reins as time goes on and our students become more proficient researchers. Finally, we need to provide appropriate arenas for our students to share what they have learned. and reflect on how it can inform their worldview and everyday behavior. This means assessing our students in creative ways by allowing them to participate in authentic, real-world tasks. For example, they may choose to present their learning in a YouTube clip, or they may write a paper analyzing their learning through the lens of a scientific discipline with the help of an expert in a different field. They may decide to use their learning as a basis for a project in the visual or performing arts, design a journal to record daily personal observations, or may even write a grant proposal for their shul board or school to adopt a particular practice based on their findings. Talmud Torah is more than an intellectual pursuit. It is an avoda. The Rambam in the third parak of Hilchot Talmud Torah tells us that Talmud Torah is equivalent to all the mitzvot because it is mevi lidei maisa. It leads to practice. But is this the reality we observe in our classrooms? The theory behind inquiry-based learning suggests that students will connect what they learn in school to their everyday lives when they are guided to ask thoughtful questions and seek answers to what they find compelling. Implementing this type of model in our Torah Sheba'al Peh curriculum will encourage students to think critically about how the Torah relates to their lived experiences and strive to relate what they learn in the classroom to their everyday lives. And as for those who will rise up and say, but we have a Masorah, that Gemara has to be taught in a certain way, I say, with one hand, you're grasping onto the tefel, and with the other, you are casting away the ikar. Our children are looking elsewhere to find answers to what bothers them deeply. And more than that, that means they're looking to the products of the teenage media culture that runs entirely against the worldview of the Torah. Join me in bringing inquiry-based learning into our Torah Sheba'al Peh classes. Let's inspire our youth to cling to our Masorah, to bring the problems they encounter out in the world into the Beit Midrash, and let the pearls they discover there shape their lives in meaningful ways.